The rain had stopped 5 minutes ago, but Damon's shirt still clung to his back like regret. He stood under the flickering neon sign of the diner, breathing hard, fists clenched, eyes locked on the woman walking away. Her heels clicked on the wet pavement, each step a sentence he hadn't said. The kind of sentence that starts wars or ends love stories. "Say something," she called over her shoulder, not even turning around. Her voice was hoarse, tired in a way no sleep could fix. Damon swallowed. His throat burned with silence. He had the words. He did. He just didn't know which one to use first. The envelope in his jacket pocket felt heavier now. Terence's letter, his brother's handwriting. 6 words scribbled on hotel stationery, mailed 2 days before his overdose. 6 words that Damon had read 100 times, never out loud. Use these. At the right time. "You always shut down like this," she snapped. Like the world is happening to you, not with you. It's exhausting." Damon stepped forward. "Wait," she froze. "I never told you why I stopped painting," he said. "You asked me 100 times and I lied every time." She turned slightly, not enough to see her eyes. "It was the day I buried Terence," Damon continued, voice shaking. "I thought, if I couldn't save him, why try to create anything? What's the point of color in a world that keeps turning gray?" Now she turned. The wind carried the scent of her lavender shampoo. Damon reached into his pocket and pulled out the crumpled letter. "I don't know what these words mean yet," he said, "but I think you're the one I'm supposed to say them to." He opened it. She waited. He breathed. Then he spoke the first word. "Whisper," Damon said, the word leaving his mouth like a prayer he didn't know he believed in. The sound barely touched the air between them, soft and unsure. Sophie blinked. "What?" He held up the letter so she could see it. One word at the top, "Whisper," underlined twice in Terence's jittery handwriting. The kind of underline that spoke more of desperation than emphasis. "It's the first word my brother left me," Damon said. "I don't know what he meant, but maybe it's not about meaning. Maybe it's about remembering how to speak gently again. To myself. To you." Sophie stared at the word like it had weight. They stood there, surrounded by wet pavement and the glow of dying neon. A truck passed on the nearby highway, its engine rumbling like distant thunder. "Why now?" she asked. "After everything?" Damon stepped closer. "Because I was always shouting inside. Even when I looked calm, everything in me was screaming. And you never deserved to be caught in the middle of that." She looked away, jaw clenched. "You think one word makes this right?" "No," he said, "but maybe it makes it possible." Sophie laughed, dry and bitter. "You think you're the only one with ghosts?" He didn't answer. "I spent 3 years trying to whisper to you, Damon. Trying to remind you who you were. But every time I reached out, you just..." She stopped, biting the inside of her cheek. The silence between them stretched. Finally, he said, "Then maybe now it's my turn." He handed her the letter. Her fingers brushed his. She unfolded it slowly. 5 more words, each one carefully written. She read them aloud, barely above a whisper. "Shelter. Forgive. Wait. Offer. Return." Then her eyes locked with his. "Now what?" Damon exhaled. "Now I learn what they mean." They sat across from each other in the back booth of the diner now, coffee untouched, hands close but not quite touching. The letter lay between them like a map to a place neither knew how to reach. Damon traced the word shelter with his finger. "Terence used to say we carry our own storms," he murmured, "that if we don't build shelter inside ourselves, we'll always be at the mercy of the weather." Sophie didn't respond. She just watched him, her expression a fragile mix of curiosity and old pain. "After he died," Damon said slowly, "I didn't want a shelter. I wanted the storm to take me too." He looked up. "I shut everyone out. You. My mum, my art. I thought grief was something you respected by never healing from it." Sophie finally spoke. "You didn't just shut us out. You made us feel like intruders." He nodded. "I know." Outside, a police cruiser rolled slowly past the window, its reflection stretching across the floor like a silent reminder of the world moving on. I read the word shelter last night, Damon said. And I realized maybe I was supposed to offer it, not just seek it. Sophie raised an eyebrow. To who? He smiled, tired. To you. To the people I've kept outside. The bell above the diner door jingled as a couple entered, laughing, breaking the tension for a moment. Sophie looked at the letter again. You think these words were meant for you to say to someone, or to become? He considered that. Maybe both. She leaned back, studying him. You really want to do this? Go through all 6? He nodded. It's the only thing that's made sense since Terence died. She reached for her coffee. Then I guess I'm staying for the next word. And for the first time in weeks, Damon didn't feel alone. The rain had returned, tapping softly against the diner windows like an old friend asking to be let in. Damon stared at the word forgive written in his brother's shaky hand. It looked out of place, too gentle for a man who had lived so wildly, who had burned through years like cigarettes. Terence had never talked about forgiveness, not once. I don't know if he meant it for me, Damon said quietly, or for himself. Sophie watched him closely. What did you two fight about that last time? He rubbed his temples. Everything, the drugs, the money he stole, the promises he broke, but mostly, I think I hated how much of him was still in me. He looked up, eyes tired. And I couldn't forgive that. Sophie's voice softened. You think carrying that hate made you stronger? No, he said. It made me numb. The waitress came by, refilled their mugs without saying much. There was a quiet kindness in that, a small gesture Damon didn't take for granted. I read the word forgive last night and realized I'd never actually done it, he admitted. Not for him, not for me, not even for you. Sophie raised an eyebrow. Me? I blamed you for leaving, he said, but the truth is I gave you no reason to stay. The silence between them wasn't sharp this time. It was thick, slow, honest. I tried to move on, she said, but I kept wondering if the man I loved was still buried under all that silence. He looked at her, barely breathing. He is, and he's trying to come back. She studied him for a long time. Then softly she said, forgiveness isn't a door, it's a hallway. We don't walk it all at once. Damon nodded. Then let's walk. They left the diner just before midnight. The rain had eased into a light drizzle, soft enough to walk through without rushing. Damon held the letter in one hand, folded and damp now at the corners. Sophie matched his steps down the quiet sidewalk. Next word is wait, she said, glancing at him. Not exactly your strong suit. Damon chuckled. Not yours either. They passed a shuttered bookstore, its display window still glowing faintly. Inside, a stack of old novels leaned like tired memories. Damon stopped walking. You know what Terence hated most? He asked. Stillness. The guy couldn't sit still for 5 minutes. Always moving, chasing highs, running from things, from people. From you? Sophie asked, especially from me. He tapped the word wait on the page. So when I read this one, it hit different. It felt like him trying to do what he never could, slow down. Ask me to be patient with pain, with healing. Sophie nodded, pulling her coat tighter. You think he knew he was dying when he wrote this? I think he knew something was ending. They continued walking. Traffic had died down to a distant hum, the city folding in on itself like it too needed rest. I waited for you, Sophie said suddenly, longer than I should have. He looked at her, guilt and something tender rising in his chest. I know. I was too buried in myself to see it. She stopped, turned toward him. So what does waiting look like now? What are we waiting for? Damon thought for a moment. For the kind of life that doesn't need running or silence. The kind where we sit in the hard moments without escaping. Sophie smiled faintly. Then I guess I can wait a little longer. And in that moment, neither of them was running anymore. By morning, they were sitting on the hood of Damon's old car, parked near the edge of Lake Merritt. Fog drifted lazily over the water, blurring the city skyline like a half-forgotten dream. The letter sat between them again, creased and stained now. The next word, offer. Damon tapped it lightly. This one scares me the most. Sophie glanced at him. Why? Because I've spent years thinking I had nothing to give, not to you, not to anyone. She didn't speak, just let the wind carry his silence. When Terence was still alive, Damon said slowly, he offered me chances. To talk, to get him help, to forgive. I turned them all down. You weren't ready, Sophie said. Maybe. But he offered anyway. And now he's gone, and this word, it feels like his last attempt, like he's asking me not to miss this chance. Sophie picked up a small rock and tossed it toward the lake. It skipped twice before sinking. Everyone has something to offer, she said. Sometimes it's not what we think it is. Damon looked at her. What do you think I have? She turned to him, calm but sure. Your honesty, your time, your attention, things no one can buy from you. He nodded, absorbing it. So, she asked, what are you offering now? He didn't hesitate. Presence, real presence, no hiding, no numbing, just me. The wind shifted, and Sophie pulled her hair behind her ears. You know, she said, that might be the first true thing you've said in years. He smiled, small but real. I'm still learning. Good, she said, gently nudging his shoulder, because I'm not here for perfection. I'm here for truth. The sun began to rise, spilling golden light across the lake. For the first time, Damon felt like the day ahead didn't need fixing, just living. The word return stared at them from the page, circled twice in Terence's handwriting, like a final instruction or a plea. Damon traced the ink with his thumb. He never came back, he said quietly. Every time he left, I waited, but he never returned. Sophie stood beside him now, arms folded, watching the waves roll in along the Berkeley marina. Maybe he wasn't supposed to, she said. Maybe this word wasn't about him returning. Damon looked at her, unsure. Maybe he meant you, she added. To return to yourself. To what matters. To love. Damon let that settle. It made his chest ache in a way that didn't feel like pain, just recognition. When he was sober, Damon said, he used to talk about buying a house in the desert. Big windows, no neighbors. Said that's where he'd finally find peace. Sophie smiled softly. Sounds lonely. Yeah, I think he believed peace had to come without people. Without noise. And you? He hesitated. I think peace is when you can hear the noise. And still stay. Not run. She nodded. Then maybe that's your return. They sat down on a bench facing the water. A family passed by behind them. 2 kids racing on scooters. The parents half laughing, half shouting. Life, full volume. I thought returning meant going backward, Damon said. Back to who I was. Sophie shook her head. No, it means coming home, even if home's a place you've never been. He looked at her, eyes full but steady. I want that, he said. Not to escape anymore, just to be here. Sophie reached for his hand. Then let's build a new place, she said. One that doesn't need to be perfect, just honest. He held her hand, and for the first time in years, Damon felt like something in him had arrived. The sun was high now, casting warm light across Damon's apartment for the first time in weeks. Dust floated in the air like memory, soft and slow. He stood before a blank canvas, clean, untouched. His brushes, once abandoned in a drawer, now sat in a jar beside him, bristles slightly frayed but still willing. Sophie moved quietly in the kitchen, humming something low. Familiar. He didn't ask what it was. He stared at the canvas, heart pounding. This wasn't just about painting, it was about proving to himself that silence no longer ruled him. On the table beside him sat Terence's letter. The 6 words now framed beside it: whisper, shelter, forgive, wait, offer, return. Each word had etched itself into him over the past few days, not as a command, but as a blueprint, a kind of emotional architecture. He dipped the brush into the paint, paused. Then he whispered the first word. Whisper. A pale streak of blue. Shelter. A soft layer of amber wrapping around the blue. Forgive. A messy stroke of red that bled into the others, raw, imperfect. Wait, he stopped. Let the paint dry where it was. He breathed. Offer. He reached for a brighter shade, a bold orange, the kind of color that demanded to be seen. Return. He circled back to the blue, strengthened it, blended it with the orange, layers, building on one another. Behind him, Sophie stepped into the room. She didn't say anything at first. Then, "That's the first color I ever saw you use." He nodded. "It's the color I used to hide behind. And now, it's the one I'm using to start over." She came closer, leaned her head on his shoulder. "Then I think Terence would have liked this one." Damon smiled. He didn't reply, he just kept painting. The gallery was small, bare brick walls, soft lights, and the gentle buzz of conversation bouncing off wooden floors. Damon stood off to the side, watching strangers move slowly through the room, pausing in front of the canvases he once feared he'd never paint again. Each painting bore a single word as its title: whisper, shelter, forgive, wait, offer, return. Together they formed the heart of the exhibit, 6 words for coming home. Sophie approached him, a glass of water in her hand. "Full house," she said, nodding toward the small crowd. Damon smiled. "Feels weird." "Good weird." "Scary weird," he admitted, "but honest." They stood in silence for a moment, watching an older woman linger in front of Forgive, wiping the corner of her eye. Damon exhaled slowly. "She gets it," he said. "She's not the only one," Sophie replied. "I think that was the point." Near the entrance, a small display held the original letter Terence had written, now preserved in glass. People leaned in to read it, some whispering to each other, others just standing quietly, as if they could hear him in the spaces between the lines. Damon walked over, stood in front of it for a long while. "Use these, at the right time." He touched the frame just once, then turned to Sophie. "I used to think Terence left me those words because he felt guilty," he said. "But I think he gave them to me because he still believed I could find something better." "You did," she said. "You found you." He looked around the room again. Not with pride, something gentler. "Peace." "What now?" Sophie asked. Damon took her hand, walking toward the door. "Now," he said, "we live like the words are still being written." And outside, as the city exhaled and the night unfolded, Damon didn't feel like he was returning anymore. He felt like he had finally arrived. Later that night, long after the gallery had emptied, Damon sat alone on the floor of his apartment. A candle flickered on the windowsill. Sophie was asleep in the next room. In his lap, a blank sheet of paper. He stared at it for a long time. Then, slowly, he picked up a pen and wrote, "Listen." He paused, read the word again. It wasn't part of Terence's 6, but it felt like it had been waiting there the whole time, buried underneath them. The missing note in a melody, the first thing he should have done, the last thing he needed to remember. He folded the paper, placed it inside the frame where Terence's letter had been, not to replace it, to complete it. Outside, the city moved softly, cars in the distance, a siren fading, the wind rustling through trees. Damon closed his eyes and breathed it in. He didn't speak, didn't move. He just listened. And for the first time in years, the silence no longer frightened him. It felt like a beginning,